Yeah, Ömer Turan from Medeniyet University, Forensics Department, Forensic Science Department. I am also the head of the resident of the Bone Department for legal section. So this session actually was a fruit of Hasan Turan's, a question by Hasan Turan, whom we have sadly lost. So the question was about something that we had in our minds after me, Kurtuluş, and other colleagues of ours. How we felt after 1 month, 1 month after we visited Kahramanmaraş. So we had a smaller version of this session before amongst ourselves. And forensic science is something that is not very well known by most, including our colleagues from the healthcare services side. So we are considered to be the ones that sweep out the crime scene or whatever after it happens. So once, for instance, somebody learns that you are a forensic scientist, people would not want to learn about you anymore. But there is this difference here. We are always ready for disaster because we are the ones who are ordinarily carrying out extraordinary activities, because we expect somebody to experience extraordinary things within their daily life, and then we would be involved. So, and Professor Kurtuluş is, I mean, yeah, let me just share with you one thing. Why I went to Kahramanmaraş, because Professor Kurtuluş was from Kahramanmaraş, and I wanted to get there because of that. We went to Kahramanmaraş, and we were the first ones to enter into the hospital. I mean, the forensic science team were there. We just organized and went there. And what we do during disasters is that it's not, yeah, the ER team works to keep people alive, and once the dust settles, you work to keep the country studying, and we keep records on who is going to be buried, and we follow up on let's say, inheritance-related issues and so on and so forth. So on and so forth. I, as somebody who has seen my share of dead bodies, it was quite striking for me even to see 500 bodies lying on the ground side by side on the road that leads to the hospital. It was quite a difficult situation for me indeed. And we started working just 1 hour afterwards. There was one prosecutor, 2 doctors, 2 police officers with almost 200 dead bodies. And Kapıçam was designated as the area to do these activities just 2 hours after the earthquake happened. And we collected all bodies within Maraş there. And our problem was to identify the victims and keep records of who lost their lives and where, because there are going to be years and years on end of legal proceedings in this regard and many problems. So we gathered all this fractured system there. I mean, it would take even 4 hours to get a chair there and a table there. And we tried to do our first activities with the help of the headlights of our cars. And in 6 hours, we started the identification of the bodies and interring them. And I would like to underline one thing Professor Kurtuluş has mentioned as well. So at the beginning, the bodies that we have identified were found to be mostly Syrian refugees. I mean, the relatives of these lost lives were there with us. They were the first ones to come there. We worked there for 15 days. We interred around 2,500 people, and 2,500 people were identified. And with Professor Hasan, with our psychiatrist colleagues, what I tried to understand, what I tried to discuss with them What I asked them was whether there was something wrong with me, because I did not feel myself tired or bad. I don't know if I'm using the right words right now, but after establishing and system and getting it to work or getting to work, I felt good because I was doing my job. I was doing my thing. And every hour, on the hour, we would receive almost 700 up to 800 bodies. I was classifying them, identifying them very well, so that their relatives, their children, their spouses were able to come and identify them with their own eyes. They didn't have to go about from body to body. And for those who were in a condition as to not be identified, we would take samples. We were preserving them very well. We established our tents to do that. And colleagues, let me say, it was quite a cold day, and there were aftershocks happening one after the other. I mean, this was something unprecedented for me. And within that time frame, I was there, standing there. Let me just say, I I mean, I did not enjoy my work there, but I was not dissatisfied either. So after 6 days there, I mean, within the first 3 days, I did not change clothes. I did not even take off my shoes. And that hospital was where we were standing. We were staying in the garden, in the yard, and we did not know what was happening inside. I mean, we were just outside in the yard in our cars. So we were unaware of what was happening in the outside world.
Hasan'a bunu paylaştım.
So, as a result, I shared this with Hassan, and Hassan said that maybe you can come and explain what was happening. And that 5 days was one of the most important breaking point of my life. And while we were leaving that place, we knew how many people were died, how many people are lost, how are they going to be classified, who is the children of whom, who is the brother or sister of whom. We were trying to identify the people by looking at them, by looking at the traces on their body, and by taking samples from the bones. So we did the identification process. Of course, there are some numbers in hand, but only 5% of people were lost according to the latest statistics. I don't know what is the current number, but it was only 5% back then. But with disasters, with that situation, our team actually lived with them, and being there trying to help people actually gave us a feeling of completeness, because we were there just because of our profession. We tried to do our best, and at the last point we had some legal issues, and we did our best to finalize and conclude those legal issues as well. I want to show you a visual. So the short one, the first, please. You can also turn off the sound. So this is the Capucham cemetery area. So let's start from the beginning and make it full screen. So here, those are the dead bodies, and our technicians and our experts were giving names and numbers to the arriving bodies, and they were classified. Why I am sharing this information is that we had a conversation among us, and I realized that later on, and this was used at training video, because we were making some humor. And is it normal? I wonder, really, is it something good or bad? I ask, how do you do? Do you give identification? Do you give number? And she says, "He." And he said, "I'm from Adana," and we say "he" instead of saying "yes." And then he just understands the seriousness of the situation. Then he changes his attitudes and explains it very seriously. So can I ask you a question? So those are really tough topics. But I'm going to answer this question. After Kocaeli earthquake, I was responsible for the earthquake coordination at the hospital. And the people were arriving at the hospital. Most of them lost their relatives and they were also injured themselves. And we had separated a floor for them. And our colleagues were visiting the patients. And after the visit, I was at the background. I was responsible for the coordination and I was watching up the visits. And then I realized that they were making jokes among themselves. So the people, they lost everything and nothing left actually, but I believe that this is something related to their resilience and it is something positive. If they still has a bits of humor left, they try to keep alive actually. They try to survive by making jokes still. So once we complete the classification and once we complete the process, how to identify people back during the earthquake times, of course we, we were not full of with joy, but still we felt satisfactory because we were satisfied with the job that we did. And if we are successful, it means that people can come there and they can find their relatives. So during the identification of the deceased persons, there is a team there, and you do the classification based on your expertise. And those teams were actually established within a couple of hours, and you were conducting an official job. So who did identify this team? Who decided to establish that team? So actually the number of workers, the number of experts and morgue is actually already definitive. And we can know the number of mortuary experts and the forensic experts, and we have a WhatsApp group, and we can allocate people immediately. So we can be the first responding team actually. I know there was a first responders. So this is a very quick organization. And the chief prosecutor is the main coordination body. And the chief prosecutor is responsible for the main coordination. And during the disaster, it may take some time for the prosecutors to take action. But we know what to do. We need this material, this equipment. This is our method and this is our process, and you just decide where we're going to bury the bodies. But we know what to do because we are the technical part. We know what we need on the field. So that's all from my side. And thank you very much for listening to me.